The War with the Overlord. Shortly after his full acceptance of Darkfire, Dacheldor was visited by an old friend from the Dark Wars, the Overlord. In the time that had passed since their last meeting, the Overlord had completely taken control of his home realm and annihilated all remains of the Dark Wave and the organization that had once created them. It brought Dacheldor great joy to hear the organization who he still blamed for the death of his beloved Daisy was no more. The Overlord had been ruling since before the days of Darkfire's birth, but had been secretly raising an army, the likes of which the realms had never seen. He had also continued the work of the technology Dacheldor once helped him with, perfecting a means of moving armies between realms without causing the soldiers to be destroyed or lose their abilities. He was now ready to use that army to attempt complete conquest of all realms, and he wanted Dacheldor's help to do so. Having watched Dacheldor's work in Limbo, the Overlord offered him the position of second in command, directly under him. He spoke of glorious conquest and of bringing the cosmos peace. The idea intrigued Dacheldor, but he asked one question that ultimately made his decision for him. What happens to Darkfire? The Overlord simply said, "He will be crushed like all other rivals." Dacheldor refused the offer. The Overlord shook his head and left without another word. Dacheldor could tell war was coming to Limbo, and he would get no second chance. He informed Darkfire of the meeting, and the two invested heavily in researching whatever they could about the Overlord's past. Like Darkfire, the Overlord was a Skelos with a hunger for power. It was his realm from which the Skelos species originated, though they had spread across the realms many billions of years ago. The Overlord, whose name was Silverstar, was the leader of those Skelos still remaining in his realm. He ruled them for nearly 1,000,000 years before making the move to conquer that realm, enslaving several species to build a hybrid army first. The strongest of his slave soldiers were the species called the Tyrons, massive reptilian humanoids with 4 arms. They were bred for battle, casting out any of their offspring who were deformed to other realms where they were left to die or flourish on their own. One such discarded child had been sent to Darkfire's home realm, and would later become his faithful servant Larch. It was likely never apparent to Larch that his fondness for having a Skelos master was bred into him on a genetic level. In his attempts to fully conquer his realm, the Overlord sought technology from other realms. He sacrificed many beings in his experiments to openly communicate between realms. He provided technology to intelligent people of science in exchange for their research, and was even responsible for funding the very organization Dacheldor held responsible for Daisy's death. That organization, which existed both in his realm and in Dacheldor's, later turned on the Overlord, creating the Dark Wave, and using them to capture him and excommunicate him from his realm. It is for this reason Dacheldor met the Overlord all those years ago. After Dacheldor helped the Overlord get back to his realm and destroy the defecting organization and Dark Wave, the Overlord used their technology to finish the conquest of his own realm, where he had ruled ever since. He renamed his realm Silver Edge, and further perfected his Tyron army in preparation for conquest of the cosmos as a whole. Nothing more could be learned about the mighty Silverstar's past. Darkfire and Dacheldor were unsure of their ability to defeat the Overlord. Though they uncovered much of his personal story, they had little knowledge of exactly how powerful he or his armies were. They prepared their armies as best they could, feeling assured he would be invading their realm first. The first knight in Shakarok arrived to speak with them shortly after they began preparations. Dacheldor's children, Mikhail and Nicole, showed up as well, directed to do so by the first knight. As was typical, the first knight provided information that could only have been discerned from living in another timeline. He informed them that the Overlord was not planning to open a portal and assault Limbo in a show of force. He had been secretly opening portals for years on different planets within Limbo. His armies were already here, hidden in plain sight, and if he was not thwarted before those armies struck each planet, there would be no war to win. The tactics of the Limbo Imperial military changed. Units were sent to scout locations the first knight specifically knew. The generals, the more powerful captains and guards, Shakarok, Dacheldor, and his children, and even Darkfire each escorted a team. They executed a coordinated attack, striking these secret facilities at once. It was their only hope of victory. Each of these micro-battles was fierce. Several generals were killed, billions of soldiers were lost, and none were returned to life. The Overlord's soldiers were all soul eaters like Dacheldor. If they killed an enemy, there was no bringing them back. The Limbo Imperial military lost more of the battles than they won, but they managed to completely overturn the Overlord's operation. His forces had to regroup on a cluster of conquered worlds, leaving the bulk of Limbo free from his attack. Meanwhile, the losses of the Limbo Imperial military were severe. Nearly half their soldiers, starships, and weapons reserves were lost in the battle. They were ill fit to repel an assault by the Overlord's forces, but it was better than the alternative option. Now they had a chance. Dacheldor was inconsolable when he returned from the battles. At first, it was believed this may be because his trusted soldiers were lost beyond revival, a team who was finally unaging like him, but this was only half of the issue. When he had struck the Overlord's forces, he got a good look at their banners, armor, and technology. They matched those of Tiberum Zoltar and the demons of Malak. This meant the Overlord had been in league with the very forces that destroyed Dacheldor's people and cursed him with immortality so long ago. This meant the organization had been tied directly to those same demons. The death of Daisy was tied to the same monsters that haunted him for most of his early life. All of the things that he hated, all of the things that had made him who he was, all that he thought he had overcome, was all under the influence of the Overlord since the beginning. Why? Had the Overlord singled him out? Had he been watching him all this time? Was his whole life orchestrated? It took Dacheldor days to even find the words to speak again, let alone share what he had learned. Meanwhile, the Overlord had been nowhere to be seen during the battles. While everyone else was rallying to strike his forces, he was out searching for a replacement second-in-command option. He strode up to the stone golems guarding a dark vault, destroying them with a flick of a finger. He tore the vault open to find a stasis bubble within, pulsing with energy. He reached through the membrane and pulled the prisoner free from this trap, a prisoner who would do anything to be free, gladly joining the ranks of the person who freed him. Then, using the same technology used to transport his troops, the Overlord returned the prisoner to all his former abilities and powers. Dark Destructor kneeled as his powers returned. His creator, the Overlord, truly had come for him. He gladly accepted his place as second-in-command. When the Overlord returned to the battlefield, with Dark Destructor by his side, he projected a mental communication to Darkfire, Dacheldor, and all the members of the Limbo Imperial military. The Overlord and Dark Destructor stood with their 5 greatest warriors, all dressed in an odd form of armor that looked like flowing liquid metal. He challenged them, saying he could bring all of his soldiers crashing down upon the Limbo Imperial military, but the 7 of them standing there were enough to do it on their own. Castle Darkfire shook as the 7 suddenly appeared in orbit around it, firing mighty blasts of energy strong enough to obliterate its outer shields and blow holes in the walls. Dacheldor, Nicole, Mikhail, Shakarok, and the remaining generals engaged them, but the armor they were wearing made them seemingly invulnerable to even the strongest attacks. One by one, the generals fell, leaving only those among them who were immortal alive. Mikhail's immortality kept him from death, but he was completely demoralized by the experience. Dacheldor and Nicole fought back to back, but were bogged down by 3 of the 7 attackers who kept them from being able to stop the others. Shakarok found himself pulled into a head-to-head with Dark Destructor, and felt an odd sensation each time their powers impacted one another. He was captivated by it, unable to tear himself away from the fight. Dark Destructor felt the same. In a secret laboratory in the center of Castle Darkfire, Bylon and Darkfire attempted to activate a piece of technology their scientists had been working on for some time. It supposedly was a working time machine, but it had yet to function correctly. It had a tendency of losing what was sent through it in time, and sending it to multiple iterations of time before stopping. Darkfire felt it was worth risking its use, planning to use it to go back in time and kill the Overlord before he was born. He set the dials for well before the Overlord's birth, expecting he would need to adapt to the alteration in the other realm before he could kill him. The machine pulled all of the power out of the castle, but, before it ignited, the Overlord burst through the doors. He grabbed Darkfire around the throat and lifted him off the ground. "Of all the children I've fathered and sent to the various realms, you are the most troublesome," he said. Darkfire could not believe what he was hearing. He had never known who his Skelos father was. Could it truly be Silverstar? "You, more than any other, take the most after me, and I despise you for it." The machine reached full power. Darkfire was unable to enter. Bylon nodded and entered the archway. A bright light filled Bylon, pulling him out of sync with time and space, but just before he vanished, he struck a vital part of the machine with his axe. As he was sent flying through time, the machine exploded, blowing the core of Castle Darkfire to bits and tossing the Overlord away from Darkfire. He knew his brother's immortality rings would keep him safe, and he did not care what happened to everyone else in the castle as a result. Darkfire lifted himself on a pile of rubble as he saw his castle falling to pieces. He resigned to believe his brother must not have changed the timeline. Nothing, it seemed, could stop the Overlord. In the chaos, the 7 combatants were forced to regroup. Dacheldor and the others regrouped as well, finding their way to Darkfire. The remaining forces eyed each other, 7 on one side and 7 on the other. Dacheldor, Nicole, Mikhail, Shakarok, and Darkfire were joined by the 2 remaining immortal generals, Kara and Magnus. The Overlord and Dark Destructor were joined by their 5 greatest warriors. Both sides seemed intent on lunging back into the fray. The Overlord laughed and raised his arms. A portal opened above the remains of the castle, and billions of soldiers from his realm poured in. Dacheldor and the others killed hundreds at a time, but they forced the team to split apart. Each time one of the 7 got separated enough from the team, the Overlord and his 6 other team members encircled the outlier and overpowered them, binding them and taking them prisoner. They managed to capture Mikhail, Kara, and Magnus before Dacheldor, Darkfire, and Nicole could escape. Shakarok remained behind, battling Dark Destructor without concern for the others. The two, both entranced by the impact of each other's powers, acted as if there was no choice but to remain locked in combat. At the close of the battle, the Overlord proclaimed Limbo as officially his, and took his armies to the worlds to conquer it fully. Dacheldor, Darkfire, and Nicole retreated to one of the Empire's secret facilities. There they met the First Knight, who had remained absent throughout the battle. When asked where he had been, the First Knight simply said,
"We finally reached the point in time where I can reveal my face to you."
Removing his helmet, he revealed himself to be Bylon. Dacheldor and Nicole were shocked. Darkfire was furious. He wanted to know why his brother had not stopped what had happened. He had obviously traveled through time and returned a stronger being. Why was the Overlord still a threat? Bylon explained that he could not kill the Overlord or change his general plans without risking paradoxically killing Darkfire. As was suspected, Silverstar was Darkfire's father. The only way to battle the Overlord effectively would be to set Darkfire up to survive the onslaught that had just happened, and to ensure he had a powerful enough ally to defeat the Overlord after the castle was destroyed. Bylon turned his gaze to Dacheldor. With his golden helmet removed, Bylon's mind was open for Dacheldor to read. Knowing he was scanning his surface thoughts, Bylon let everything he had done become known to Dacheldor, and why he had done it. Dacheldor covered his face and wept openly. He sat on the floor and laughed maniacally. Nicole came to his side, asking what was wrong. Bylon could not risk changing the Overlord's life, or the life of Darkfire, or their mother. He could not directly change the Overlord's realm, Darkfire's original realm, or the realm of Limbo. Doing any of that risked his own and his brother's demise, but altering what happened in Dacheldor's realm was safe. In the far past, Bylon acted as an advisor to the Overlord, becoming trusted by him. He did little to alter any of his actions, but selected another realm to impact on his own. He used the Overlord's resources, the demons, Tiberum Zoltar, the organization, cloning technology, his armies, and battered that realm, looking for a being who could be molded into a weapon strong enough to defeat the Overlord. Eventually, he determined that being would be Dacheldor. Because of the Time Machine's issues, Bylon relived the timeline multiple times. Each time he got better at manipulating Dacheldor's life. Each time he made Dacheldor stronger and yet more stable thanks to the situations he surrounded him with. Each time he grew to regret what he was doing to Dacheldor more and more. Each time he recalled a new past of his own, formed by the change of meeting Dacheldor before traveling through time. He came to see Dacheldor as a friend, and hated having to do this to him. The first time he had gone through time this way, Dacheldor had not been an immortal. He had never met Darkfire or Bylon. The second time, he was assaulted by demons, cursed with immortality, and made to meet up with Darkfire and Bylon, but he did not trust Darkfire enough to protect him in the battle to come. The third time, and each time thereafter, Bylon knew him personally. Elements were placed in his path to strengthen him, others to stabilize him, and others to endear him to Darkfire. When he gave Darkfire the Rings of Immortality, Bylon knew this was the last time he would have to travel through time. By this point, he had mastered the ability to travel in this way at will. Dacheldor threw up. As he had started to suspect, his whole life had actually been orchestrated, but not by the Overlord. Bylon had manipulated him from the beginning. His nearly 2 billion years of life had been for the sole purpose of protecting Darkfire in this war and defeating the Overlord. Struggling to decide if he would be willing to help Bylon and Darkfire, he could not shake knowing that he would have done the same in their place. His life experiences were exactly what was needed to accept this horrible fate. "When this is over," Dacheldor said to Bylon, "we're not friends anymore." Bylon choked back tears and turned away. He understood Dacheldor's feelings. Darkfire stood with his mouth agape. He too had read his brother's thoughts. He could not even fathom the betrayal Dacheldor must be feeling. It made his own revelations about his father seem insignificant in comparison. Nicole was confused and never told the truth. Dacheldor, Darkfire, and Bylon chose never to speak of this openly. It was too harsh for words.